Hey family, it's Tasha, MAMABEAR prepping. You already know what time it is. Get your drink, pull up. Let's take a sip. Yum, yum, yum. Okay, so let's get into it. Welcome to the channel. Welcome back to the channel where we just talk about emergency preparedness, talk about different things happening in the world, our assessment of it, how we track that, how we understand that to be, and then how that plays into how my family and I prepare. Okay, so one of the things that we prepare for is natural disasters, different things that could happen. You know, we're in a state that rains a lot, and so there's mitigations in regards to possibilities of mudslides and how do you react and mitigate for different types of weather and flooding. And so today I want to talk a little bit about flooding. You know, me and hubby, we went and looked at a house, beautiful piece of property. I mean, just beautiful. Probably one of the best pieces of land that we have set our eyes on yet. But the problem was that this particular land isn't selling. And part of that is because of it's beautiful setting, beautiful mountains, and there's rain that comes down from this mountain. And there's always been, you know, a little creek and a culvert and, you know, a little waterway for it to go down, and it's never really affected the house. But in the last couple years back, they had a really bad rain evolution, if you will, like a season of just super, super heavy rain. It was horrible. It was catastrophic, you know, and it was much more than it ever was in recent years, right? It was catastrophic rain event, if you will. Just rained and rained and rained and rained and rained for a certain amount of time that obviously made it horrible. And so what had happened is during that time, nobody was living in the house, and the water from that culvert, it was too small of a culvert at that point, and water started deviating, right? And it deviated towards the house. And, you know, can it be fixed? Sure. Can it be set back to the way it was? Since then, the city's come in, put in a much larger culvert, and so it can be corrected, right? And the property is big enough that you have a lot of movement of how to fix things. But might be too much to chew because it did a lot of damage when it deviated and basically went through the foundation of the house and the property and all around. So that is to be determined, you know, a different situation, different conversation. But my point is that flooding is more than just, oh, you live by a river and it overflowed. It got, you know, rained for days and it, you know, swelled and it got you, right? It's more than that. It's much more than waterways and different things like that. You know, it's understanding how water works on your property where you live. And this is important, very important, that you go outside when it's raining multiple times and different levels of rain, right? You know, basic rain and then a storm. And it's important to go out and really, really look where you live. I don't care, an apartment, you can't do that much, but if you rent the house, right? This is something I would be doing. Obviously, if you own the house, this doesn't matter if it's suburban, urban, if you live out in the country, if you have some land, all of this matters. And so you would go outside during the storms and you need to watch your water. You need to watch where the water goes. Where does it accumulate? Where are the paths that it naturally is going because of the elements that are outside and around it? During those heavy, heavy, heavy rains, you need to be looking at that. And you need to do it when it's raining and not necessarily like, okay, well, I'm going to go out there right after it's done. Sorry, you guys. I'm going to go out there right after it's done and I'm going to see. Yeah, you could possibly see some water, but when it's in the cusp, when it's like crazy, 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 that's when you really want to see, because water flow can, you know, recede or be way different from being in it, and even right afterwards it's 10 times less than what it was. And so you need to see it at its worst so that you can see where that water goes. And then just think how much worse it can be if it was catastrophic rains, if it was 100 year type storm or weather, right? That people talk about, oh, it was, we've never, ever, ever, but in a century had rain like this and all of a sudden we had it, right? It is a catastrophic event that everybody in the area is, you know, is dealing with, right? And you can get ahead of that. It is important to think about flooding and think about how you would mitigate that. There's stuff you can do now with grading away from your house, right? Having somebody come out and just tell you, you can do it yourself or you can have a professional do it, but just grading and making, which is just saying that it's a slope away from your house. And I'm not talking about a slope like this, just enough grading that the water naturally is not going to go into your house. It's going to go away. So if there's crazy rains, it's not going to go in your house. Now you still have to deal with, okay, but what if rain just accumulates, period, right? And if you have some grading, cool, but maybe there's a river all of a sudden going through your house. You have water that's directly coming to your house and your house is in the path. How do you stop that? How do you stop that flooding? And that's harder to do. But again, you can deviate that. You can make a little, troughed area wherever that water's coming to. Maybe it goes directly to the back of your house, let's say. And you could do a troughed area that's graded that goes around both sides of your house and down to a field, to a culvert, to a ditch, to a drainage, to a pond, whatever it is, right? And you can move that water, right? A lot of people do trenching, not deep trenching, but just a little trench with some river rock. Simple things like that can be helpful in your backyard, and for helping for drainage and for routing the water and for also draining the water. So when it actually comes and it's sitting, for draining it later, right? It's important that we think about these things. Sandbags. We've talked about sandbags a lot on these channels. Hey, sandbags is such an important prep that people forget. Sandbags are important. Obviously, you need to be somewhere where you're able to fill that with a material, a sand, a dirt, a rock, something, right? So that you can use them. You can fill them ahead of time, but they're going to start to disintegrate depending on how long you keep them, right? So, and how strong the actual original bag is. Some of them are very, very cheap, and as soon as you fill them, and once they get wet and they go through a couple rain cycles, they'll start to rip and tear, and they're no good, right? But you can get quality ones, more of the plastic, heavier duty ones. You can fill them with a mix, a rock and dirt mix. You get a delivery from your local dirt place, $12, $15 for a load of dirt or a load of sand or whatever it is you want to fill them with. And you can fill them and have them on a crate, have them ready to go. And if you have a good quality sandbag, they'll last for a while. But even if you live in an urban place, you rent, having sandbags available and having the ability to fill them and deep, because you can put those in front of any place that you think water is going to come into your home, right? Crawl spaces, doors, anywhere, right? Basement, windows on a basement, whatever. But you can place them and again, make the water go where you want to go. So again, maybe you don't have that culvert, but you can put some sandbags that then the water comes down, hits those sandbags, and then goes around the house and goes down the driveway to the gutter or whatever the case may be. But it's important to have that stuff and to prep that stuff for flooding. And don't think that, oh, well, this is not something that could ever happen to us. But baby, when it happens and you're not prepared, I mean, that's stuff in your home that's getting ruined. Have a game plan too of getting stuff off the ground. Just look at the room and it's like, okay, if you did have time, how could you start getting stuff off the ground? It's heartbreaking though, because flooding is not good. It's horrible, right? If you're buying, thinking about elevation, looking at flood lines, looking at, is it a valley naturally? If just you had 100-year rains, could it flood just naturally because of where it's at? Maybe it's never flooded there, but that's the type of stuff that you want to pay attention to, right? Watching the rain. Again, if you're in an apartment, this is hard to do. Obviously there's benefits if you're in a second floor apartment, third floor apartment, that type of thing as far as damage. But again, do you make it, what type of damage is there? Can the building be washed out? Like what else could happen? There's other, I guess, dramas that could happen that you should be thinking about when it comes to water flooding, trying to do that. The other thing is garden placements, thinking about gardens. I'm a huge fan of container gardening and raised beds. That's really my thing, just because as I get older, I want to be able to continue to garden, right? And so I'm a big fan of these 2 foot, 3 foot high raised beds. Another amazing thing about that is if a flood comes through, some of your plants could possibly be okay and make it through that, okay, because you had raised beds. Can stuff still be washed away? Because do not sleep on a good waterway coming through, good flood waters coming through. That's crazy, right? But there's a possibility that you have plants and you have rooted, you have good, sturdy, plant beds that are going to protect plants possibly as waters come through or as they rise, depending on what your beds look like, right? How high are they? What are they made out of? And there's a lot of stuff people might, well, I have a rental. I can't just dig a riverbed in my backyard. I see the water goes through here. I can't just dig a thing. But there's stuff you can get. I mean, you can get, for example, metal sheeting metal, and like roofing material even, right? Corrugated stuff, stuff people put up on their walls to do some sort of, nice thing, whatever, right? You get that stuff in smaller sheets and you literally could just stick that in the ground, right? And get you a rubber mallet and just stick that in the ground at waterway points where you want to redirect the water, right? You see a point where the water is coming and turns and starts to go directly to your house. You put a piece of that metal and you can bend it, right? Bend it in the way you want, tap it into the ground, and then that water's going to hit it, and which is going to make it change direction. So there's things that you can get even when you're renting a place to manipulate the situation, manipulate the water, and help protect your house, right? I mean, ideally you could get that and make almost a barrier around your entire house, and then have the entry part of where the water is hitting to make sure that it is actually hitting that, and then that will send it in a different direction. So there's different things that you can do, right, to stop water or just to make it go in a different direction. And that's a good one for when you're just renting, you don't own the place, or you're older, you don't really have the mindset to I'm gonna build me a little quarry back here. I'm gonna build me a little seasoned pond or a catchment, or I'm gonna build me some little troughs on the side of my house that the water can go down, with a little river rock. It's different when you get older, or don't have the funds for all of that. That stuff adds up quickly, that stuff, when you buy that. So just all I'm saying is flooding is a very important thing. And you have to think about it, not only your home, but you're thinking about it in regards to what do you have outside your home, your plants, your animals. I watched I think it was a homestead rescue, and this farm, the entire thing flooded and they lost all these animals. And what's so sad is that these people had a barn that was on their property, a huge barn that was up their property, and totally was, did not flood, was much higher elevation. And, they fled and they got a few animals, but a bunch of animals died. And I don't know, it's weird because I was like, was it flash flooding? It's like, how does all of a sudden they don't have time to get their animals to just even move them to a higher location? But unfortunately, and again, I think they weren't prepared. They never thought that was going to happen. Shocked that it's happening. I don't know. But a bunch of their chickens died. They had chickens, ducks, all types of animals, goats and stuff, and a bunch of their animals drowned. And what's sad is they absolutely in their power had a situation. So they lived by this river that then flooded. And of course that's catastrophic. To me, common sense is if I live by a waterway like that, you need to 100% prepare the day that takes over, the rain takes it over, the water takes over, and how that's going to affect your house. And what is your game plan to evacuate, to move, to get higher, to what's the plan to move the water in a way that you can. There's some situations where you're not able to move water. Just the whole area is flooded, and that's just it, period. The whole place is flooded. You can't prepare for that. Except having insurance so that you can get your house fixed and your stuff, and there's no way to change the game, right? Because the entire place is underwater, and that, there's nothing you can do, right? But there is stuff you can do to try to mitigate when the rains do come, when they do start, and from the beginning trying to save your house, okay? I don't know. I'm actually very, very curious on any of your guys' ideas, especially for those that have property or have even done stuff. Like I said, you could live in a suburban area and do some of these mitigations and prep for this and prepare for this. And, you know, this isn't some kind of crazy prepper stuff. Oh, it's just another thing we have to do. No, it's just that weather is changing on our planet, and you have to adapt to that. You need to grow with that. You have to understand that every season, I don't know about you, but every season it's changing, right? And seasons are changing, not your typical, oh, well, this season it rains, and this season is the season of snow, and this is the season of warms up a little bit, and then this is the season of heat. No, it's crazy. You have rain when there's not supposed to be rain. You have snow when there's not supposed to be snow. You have 80, 100-degree days one day and snow the next day. I mean, you have a golf ball, you know, hail. You have all of this stuff that's happening, right? And you have flooding. You also have drought, but you have flooding that is happening, right? And you've got to prepare for these changes in general that are going to happen because of our weather and the changes in our weather. Okay, so I would love to hear in the comments below your guys' thoughts, things you would do, things you have done, products. If there's something that you bought that you're like, I bought this and I loved it, it helped for this. Corrugating piping, you know, you can buy corrugating piping, put it in a place where you know water like just hits, tons of water when it rains hits. Make you a little dugout right area with rock. Do your own corrugated piping. I mean, there's regular pipes you can get, like almost like sewer pipes. There's regular corrugated piping, but you can dig a ditch. And of course, after you've gotten permission to dig, right? Because if you're in the city or somewhere, you need to be calling anyway, so that you make sure you don't hit no gas lines and different things, right? You need to call the dig place. It's usually 211 or 811 numbers, but basically, and then you can put that in the ground, and then it will go into that. You bury that, and then it comes out somewhere else on your property or somewhere else, you know, where you know it's going to be able to drain away, right? So just something to think about, something that's, you know, possible. Even if you're in the suburban area, that's a possibility of to do something to do with that. Okay. You know, you could have that corrugating piping come out, you know, in your yard on your property with some more rocks. And then if that gets too full or big, you know, overflows, and you make sure that you position it where it's by the street, or it goes to the street, where it goes to the drainage or whatever. Okay. Just think these things through. I want to know your guys' thoughts. I'm definitely going to go through the comments because I want to learn. I like learning from you guys, seeing ideas of what other people are doing or have done, or your ideas of stuff that you think would work well. Let me know, and I will see you guys on the next video. Take care. Bye.